That jacket smells like mothballs and broken dreams, my stepsister Vanessa announced, pinching her nose as I entered our father's Scottsdale mansion. Honestly, Iris, wearing a dead woman's clothes to Dad's birthday dinner is a new low, even for you. The text message illuminating my phone wasn't from Goodwill about their half-off sale. It was Christie's auction house confirming the Met's acquisition of my collection for $2.1 million. The annual birthday dinner for my stepfather Harrison had all the warmth of a corporate board meeting, which made sense since he ran his family like a Fortune 500 company. Vanessa, 25 and dressed in this season's Balenciaga, had positioned herself by the entrance specifically to critique arrivals. Her mother, my stepmother Diane, nodded approvingly from the living room, where she held court in her usual throne-like chair. "Vintage Chanel isn't dead people's clothes," I said mildly, running my hand over the 1954 boucle jacket I'd found at an estate sale in Tucson 2 years ago. "It's wearable history. It's wearable hepatitis," Vanessa countered. "Do you have any idea how disgusting it is? Wearing something that touched someone else's skin? That absorbed their sweat, their perfume, their everything. Everything wash out," I said, though I knew logic wouldn't penetrate her prejudice. "The smell doesn't. You reek of old lady and bad decisions." She turned to her boyfriend, Preston, who was attempting invisibility by the coat closet. "Tell her, baby. Doesn't she smell like a thrift store?" Preston, who I'd once caught checking vintage Rolex prices on his phone, wisely stayed silent. "At least I don't smell like I bathed in Tom Ford," I muttered, moving past her into the living room where the rest of the family had gathered. "Iris, darling." Diane greeted me with her usual artificial warmth. "How authentic you look. Is that jacket from the 1900s? 1954, actually. Prehistoric," she sighed. "You know, Harrison's birthday wish was for all his children to show up looking successful." Brandon understood the assignment. She gestured to my stepbrother, who stood by the bar in a suit that screamed hedge fund douche. Even Marcus made an effort. My younger half-brother waved awkwardly in his ill-fitting but clearly new blazer. "And I'm here," I said. Successfully on time. Successfully dressed like a bag lady, Vanessa had followed me in. "Dad, please tell Iris that wearing used clothes to family functions is embarrassing." Harrison looked up from his phone, surveyed me with the quick assessment of someone calculating asset value, and shrugged. "It's certainly a choice." "A poor choice," Diane added. "Iris, you're 28. At some point, this vintage obsession needs to end. It's not quirky anymore, it's concerning." My phone buzzed again. 3 missed calls from Christie's, 2 from the Met's Costume Institute, and a text from my assistant that just said, "Check your email now." "Maybe we should discuss this later," I suggested, settling onto the couch, carefully, because the 1960s Pucci dress under my jacket was more delicate than it looked. "No, let's discuss it now." Vanessa sat across from me, ready for battle. "Do you know what my friends say when they see your Instagram? They ask if you're homeless. If we're running a charity case. Your friends follow my Instagram? To laugh at it. Thrift haul? Estate sale finds? You're literally bragging about wearing corpse clothes. Dramatic much? Is it dramatic, though? That dress you wore to the country club last month. The 1962 Balenciaga? The 1962 dead person's dress. The manager asked Mom if you were having financial difficulties. Because I wore vintage couture to brunch? Because you looked like you raided a museum." Vanessa's voice pitched higher. "Normal people wear new clothes. Successful people wear current season. Losers wear leftovers from dead people's closets." "Vanessa," Harrison said absently, still scrolling his phone. "Let your sister dress how she wants." "Stepsister," both Vanessa and I corrected simultaneously. "Whatever. Can we eat? I have a conference call with Tokyo in 2 hours." "Not until we address this." Diane stood, moving to what I recognized as her lecture position. "Iris, your father." "Stepfather," I corrected. "Your stepfather has provided you with every opportunity. Private schools, college tuition connections. And you repay him by showing up to family events looking like you shop at Salvation Army." "I do shop at Salvation Army. Also Goodwill, estate sales, vintage boutiques." "Why?" Vanessa exploded. "Why do you insist on embarrassing us? Is it some kind of rebellion? Poor little Iris, whose mommy died and left her with nothing." The room went cold. Even Harrison looked up from his phone. "Vanessa," he warned. "What?" "We're all thinking it. She dresses like this because she's jealous. We have money, she doesn't. We can afford new things, she can't. So she pretends this vintage crap is a choice when really it's just poverty cosplay. My phone rang. Christie's again. This time I answered, partly to escape and partly because they'd called 6 times. Iris? Thank God, Margaret Chin, my contact at Christie's, sounded breathless. The Met accepted. Full asking price. $2.1 million for the complete collection. That's wonderful, I said quietly, very aware of my family listening. Wonderful? Iris, this is historic. Your Chanel collection alone. The board couldn't believe the condition. And the provenance documentation you provided? Impeccable. When can you come to New York for the transfer? Can I call you back? Of course, but Iris? Congratulations. What you've built is extraordinary. I hung up to find everyone staring at me. Wrong number? Diane asked hopefully. Christie's auction house, I said. The Metropolitan Museum of Art just bought my vintage collection. You're what now? Vanessa laughed. Your pile of old clothes? My curated collection of mid-century haute couture. Apparently, it's worth $2.1 million. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear the pool filter running outside. That's impossible, Diane said finally. Is it? I've been collecting for 10 years. Studying fashion history. Authenticating pieces. Building relationships with estates, dealers, museums. What did you think I was doing at all those gross thrift stores? Bargain hunting, Vanessa said faintly. Being cheap. I was investing. That dead person's dress from the country club? It's a Balenciaga worth $45,000. This jacket that smells like mothballs? Chanel Haute Couture, 1954, worth $35,000. The Pucci underneath it. Stop, Harrison commanded. You're telling me you've been wearing millions of dollars to family dinners? Hundreds of thousands. The millions were in storage. Climate-controlled, professionally maintained, fully insured storage. But you drive a Honda, Brandon spoke for the first time. A 2010 Honda, Vanessa added. We've seen it. We've mocked it. Cars depreciate. Vintage couture appreciates. Would you rather I'd spent my trust fund on a Ferrari? What trust fund? Diane's voice was sharp. I looked at Harrison. You didn't tell them? He shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't relevant. My mother's life insurance. It wasn't much, $50,000. Harrison invested it for me. Turned it into about $200,000 by the time I was 18. That's what you used? Marcus asked, genuinely curious. To buy old clothes? To build a collection. I started small, a Dior scarf here, a Hermes belt there. Learned to authenticate, to spot value, to predict trends. Turns out, the fashion world values preservation as much as creation. This is insane, Vanessa stood, pacing now. You let me mock you. Let Mom. I let you reveal yourselves, I corrected. Every snide comment, every corpse clothes joke, every time you called me a loser for wearing vintage, you showed me exactly who you were. That's manipulative. That's patient. Do you know how many times I wanted to tell you? When you laughed at my ratty old coat, that was actually a 1947 Dior New Look jacket worth more than your car. When you posted that Instagram story mocking my thrift store finds while wearing fast fashion, that'll be in a landfill next year. You're lying, Diane decided. This is all some elaborate. I pulled up the Christie's email, showing them the official letter. The Met's logo. The number with all those zeros. I'm flying to New York next week for the official transfer. They're mounting an exhibition. The Art of Preservation, Mid-Century Couture in Modern America. My collection will be the centerpiece. Your pile of dead people's clothes, Vanessa said weakly. Marie Antoinette's clothes are in museums. So are Jackie Kennedy's. Princess Diana's. At what point do dead people's clothes become historical artifacts? When they're famous people, or when they're beautifully made, historically significant, culturally important pieces that tell the story of design evolution. Fame is just one type of value. I need a drink, Harrison said, moving to the bar. Iris, why didn't you tell me? Would you have listened? You've spent 10 years tolerating my weird hobby. Diane spent 10 years trying to fix me. Vanessa spent 10 years mocking me. Only Marcus ever asked genuine questions. Marcus smiled shyly. I always thought your clothes were cool. Like actually unique. Not just expensive unique like Vans. My clothes are investment pieces. Vanessa protested. Your clothes are this season's status symbols, I countered. Next season they'll be passé. In 10 years they'll be worthless. In 50 years, if they survive, which they won't because they're made to fall apart, they might be vintage. But probably not, because there's nothing special about them except the price tag. At least they haven't been worn by corpses. No, just by sweatshop workers making $2 a day, so you can feel superior to people who shop secondhand. Iris, Diane tried to regain control. This news is surprising. But it doesn't change the fact that wearing used clothing to family events is inappropriate. Inappropriate? I'm wearing museum-quality pieces to dinner with people who can't tell the difference between Chanel and Chico's. How were we supposed to know? Harrison asked. You never said. I said vintage Chanel. I said 1954. I said estate sale find. You heard old, used, cheap. That's on you, not me. So what now? Vanessa slumped back in her chair. You're some kind of fashion expert millionaire? I'm the same person I was an hour ago. Just with external validation you can understand. The collection, the expertise, the eye for quality, none of that's new. Only your perception is changing. This is about Mom, isn't it? Diane said suddenly. Your mother collected vintage. My mother collected memories. She had 3 vintage dresses she treasured. I have them still, they're not for sale. But yes, she taught me to see beauty in preservation, value in history, art in craftsmanship. She also left you practically nothing, Diane added cruelly. She left me everything that mattered. Taste, curiosity, the ability to see worth where others see waste. My phone rang again. This time Vogue. I should take this, I said, standing. Vogue's calling you? Vanessa's voice cracked. They want an interview about the collection. Apparently, sustainable fashion through vintage curation is having a moment. I stepped onto the patio, leaving them to process. The call was brief. Scheduling an interview, discussing photo shoots, planning features. The fashion world that had been my secret garden was about to become very public. When I returned, they were huddled in conference. We've decided, Diane announced, to support your success. How magnanimous. Vanessa has something to say. Vanessa looked like she'd swallowed glass. I'm sorry for calling your clothes gross. Even though I still think wearing dead people's, vintage, is weird. Progress, I said dryly. Iris, Harrison stood, attempting authority. This changes things. The family's image remains unchanged. I'm still the weird daughter who wears old clothes. They're just expensive old clothes now. But the press will be interested in the collection, not the collector. I've been invisible at Fashion Week for years. I intend to stay that way. You go to Fashion Week? Brandon asked. Where did you think I went every February and September? We assumed you were. I don't know, thrift shopping in other cities. I was. Also attending shows, meeting collectors, building relationships. Turns out, the fashion world respects someone who can spot a 1968 Correggias in a Phoenix estate sale. I could do that, Vanessa said defensively. If I wanted. If I cared about old things. Could you? Quick. What's the difference between 1950s and 1960s Chanel construction? That's not. How do you authenticate a pre-1971 Hermes? What's the tell for a real 1947 Dior versus a 1950s copy? When did Saint Laurent start using specific serial numbers? That's not fair. I don't study fashion. I thought you were an influencer. I thought you lived and breathed style. I do. You live and breathe trends. Labels. Status. You know who designed what for which celebrity this week. I know who revolutionized fashion 70 years ago and why it matters today. God, you're insufferable, Vanessa muttered. I'm educated. In my field, which you've mocked for a decade. Ladies, Harrison intervened. Let's have dinner. We can discuss this new development later. We moved to the dining room, where Diane's carefully planned tableau felt suddenly fragile. The family dynamics had shifted with a single phone call, throwing off her seating chart of power. So, Marcus ventured as we ate, will you keep collecting? Now that you've sold everything. I sold 1 collection. I have 3 more. 3. Harrison's fork paused midair. The Met bought American mid-century. I still have European avant-garde, Japanese designers from the 80s, and a small but significant collection of 1920s beaded pieces. Worth? Diane asked, unable to help herself. Collectively? About $4 million. But they're not for sale. Yet. For $1 million in old clothes, Vanessa said wonderingly. In thrift store finds. In carefully curated pieces acquired through years of study, networking, and investment. The thrift store was just one source. Estate sales, private collections, dealer relationships. We get it, Diane snapped. You're secretly brilliant, and we're all shallow idiots. You're not idiots. You just value different things. You value newness, status, visible wealth. I value craftsmanship, history, and sustainable luxury. Sustainable luxury. From dead people. From previous owners. Every vintage piece I own is one less new piece demanding resources. One less contribution to fast fashion waste. One more artifact preserved. When you put it like that, Marcus said thoughtfully, it's actually kind of cool. Like being a fashion archaeologist. Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. Don't encourage her, Vanessa muttered. She's already insufferable enough. But I caught her later, scrolling through her phone. What's a fair price for vintage Pucci? She asked Preston quietly. Depends on the era, I offered. 60s prints are most valuable. 70s can be good if the colors are right. Avoid 80s unless it's exceptional. She glared at me, then softened marginally. How do you know if it's real? Want me to teach you? Maybe. Not because I care about your weird dead people clothes thing. Just because knowledge. Whatever. It was as close to an apology as I'd get. The dinner ended with Harrison toasting his own success, as usual. But as we prepared to leave, he pulled me aside. Your mother would be proud, he said quietly. She always said you saw things others missed. She saw me, I replied. That was enough. I should have paid more attention. To your interests. Your expertise. You were busy building your empire. I was building mine. We just used different materials. Yours is worth more, he admitted. My company's valued at $3 million. But yours provides jobs, services, ongoing value. Mine's just beautiful objects finding new homes. Don't minimize it. You've preserved history. That matters. I left wearing my $35,000 jacket over my $18,000 dress, driving my $8,000 Honda, heading back to my $1,200 per month apartment where millions in vintage couture hung in climate-controlled glory. Vanessa texted as I drove. Found a Pucci at Goodwill. Probably fake, but wanna look? I smiled. Send photos. Check the selvage edge first. The what? I'll teach you. Because that's what you do with knowledge, with passion, with the ability to see treasure where others see trash. You share it. You preserve it. You pass it on. Even to stepsisters who called it gross. Especially to them. The Met exhibition opened 6 months later. Vanessa attended in vintage Halston. It was fake, but she was trying, and that mattered more than authenticity. Dead person's dress? I asked as we looked at my collection behind museum glass. Historically significant garment, she corrected. Previously owned. Sustainably sourced. You've been studying. You've been teaching. We stood together, the thrift store loser and the reformed fashion victim, watching people admire clothes that had been dismissed as corpse were just months before. I still think it's kind of gross, Vanessa admitted. But gross in a powerful way? Like, you saw value where everyone else saw garbage. That's actually kind of genius. Kind of. Don't push it. I'm still processing that my weird stepsister is secretly a millionaire fashion curator. Not so secret anymore. No, she agreed, then added quietly, I'm glad. Secret was boring. This is better. It was. Not because of the money or the recognition, but because the truth was finally out. That sometimes the best-dressed person in the room was wearing someone else's memories, and that was beautiful, not gross. Even if it did smell slightly of mothballs.